Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are taking a deep dive into a topic that usually sits squarely in the please do not bring this up at dinner category.
Oh, absolutely not dinner conversation.
Right. It's universally recognized, generally dreaded, and as I found out while prepping for this, profoundly misunderstood. We are talking about the humble, often horrified wart.
It definitely triggers the ick factor for a lot of people. I mean, most of us see a weird bump on our hand, and the immediate reaction is panic.
Yeah.
And then that's usually followed by a frantic internet search for home remedies involving, duct tape or garlic or whatever.
Guilty as charged. I've definitely gone down that rabbit hole. But that's exactly why we're here. We are looking at a really comprehensive guide from Era Organics titled Warts, Causes, Types, and Treatments by Nikki Chase.
It's a great source.
It really is. And the mission today isn't just to talk about how to get rid of them, but to actually understand what is happening biologically. Because when I started reading this material, I realized my knowledge was basically just a collection of playground myths and old wives' tales.
You mean the classic don't touch the toad warning?
Yes, exactly that. That and the idea that they have seeds inside them. I think every kid who has ever had a wart has spent time staring at those little black dots, totally convinced they were seeds that needed to be dug out.
We will definitely dismantle the seed myth today because the reality of what those dots actually are is much more interesting.
And a little more gruesome,
A
honestly.
little gruesome, yeah. But really, the goal here is to shift your perspective. Instead of just seeing a gross bump, we want to look at the viral engineering behind it.
So let's start right at the cellular level. When I look at a wart on my finger, what am I actually looking at? I mean, is it just a callus that's gone rogue?
Not exactly. A callus is just dead skin,
Yeah.
right? It's your body protecting an area from friction.
Mm.
But a wart is active. It's what medical professionals call a benign neoplasm.
Okay, neoplasm is one of those words that sounds terrifyingly close to something you'd hear in an oncology ward.
It does sound intense, but benign is the critical qualifier there.
Right.
It just means non-cancerous. It's a localized growth caused by a viral infection.
Yeah.
Specifically, the human papillomavirus, or HPV.
Now, I feel like we need to pause on HPV for a second.
Sure.
Because when most people hear that acronym, they think of a very specific sexually transmitted context. They don't immediately think of the bump on a 7-year-old's knee.
Precisely. And that is probably the biggest point of confusion we encounter. HPV isn't just a single virus. It's a massive family of viruses.
Like, how many are we talking?
There are over 100 distinct strains. The strains that cause common warts on your hands, which are usually types 1, 2, 4, and maybe 63, those are totally different from the strains associated with genital issues or cancer risk.
Okay, that makes sense.
They just prefer different real estate on the body.
So the virus actually has a preference for where it sets up camp.
It does. It's very tissue specific.
Huh.
But the mechanism of action, the way it actually works, is similar across the board. The virus invades the top layer of your skin, the epidermis, and it essentially hijacks the cellular machinery.
It rewrites the code.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
It tells the skin cells, specifically the keratinocytes, to just hit the gas pedal on reproduction. It triggers rapid, totally uncontrolled cell growth.
Wow.
And that excess tissue has to go somewhere, so it piles up, forming that raised, rough patch we recognize as a wart.
And based on the source material from Era Organics, this isn't exactly a rare phenomenon at all.
Oh, far from it. The guide estimates about 10% of the global population has a wart at any given time.
10%, that is hundreds of millions of people.
It's a standard part of the human experience.
That number just seems so high. But I guess if you account for the fact that people tend to hide them, it makes sense. And I noticed the prevalence really skyrockets when you look at kids.
Right. In school-age children, that number jumps to between 10 and 20%.
Why is that? Is it just because kids are, constantly touching dirt and each other? Or is there an actual biological reason?
It's a bit of column A, definitely, but mostly it's a biological reason. It comes down to something called immunological naivety.
Immunological naivety?
Yeah. A child's immune system is still in the learning phase. It hasn't built up a massive library of antibodies yet. An adult immune system has likely encountered these really common HPV strains dozens of times over a lifetime, and it neutralizes them before a wart could ever even form.
Oh, I see.
Kids are essentially open territory.
So their immune system just leaves the front door completely unlocked.
Or it just doesn't recognize the intruder until it's way too late.
Okay, let's go back to the visual of the wart itself, because this is where that seed myth comes from. The guide is very specific about this. Those black dots inside the wart, if they aren't seeds and they aren't dirt, What exactly are we looking at?
You're looking at a supply chain.
A supply chain.
Those little dots are thrombosed capillaries. They are clotted blood vessels.
Oh, wow.
Essentially, the wart grows so fast and needs so much energy to sustain that rapid cell division that it recruits your body's own blood vessels to grow into it.
You're kidding.
No, it actually hijacks your circulatory system to feed itself.
That is horrifyingly impressive. It's literally like the virus builds its own little city and then forces your body to lay down the plumbing.
It's a parasitic relationship in the truest sense of the word.
Yeah.
The virus is living off your nutrients.
Yep.
That's exactly why, if you've ever tried to cut a wart off, which, by the way, please never do, it bleeds profusely.
Because it's full of blood vessels.
Right. It's extremely vascular.
Good to know. So, in terms of identification, aside from spotting those black dots, how do I distinguish a wart from, say, a mole or a skin tag or just a really weird callus?
There's a detective trick that dermatologists use, and I actually love this one. You look at the skin lines, your fingerprints.
Okay, I'm looking at my thumb right now.
If you have a callus or a mole,
Mm-hmm.
your natural skin lines usually run right through it or right over it.
Yeah.
The pattern just continues uninterrupted. But a wart disrupts the entire architecture of the skin. If you look closely, the fingerprint lines will stop abruptly at the edge of the lesion and then resume on the other side.
So it breaks the pattern.
Exactly. The wart essentially bulldozes the natural landscape of your skin.
So if the fingerprint is erased in that specific spot, it's a wart. That is actually a really useful diagnostic tool for anyone listening.
It is. And texture matters too, of course. Warts generally have that rough, grainy, almost cauliflower-like surface, whereas moles and skin tags tend to be smoother or more fleshy.
No, the guide lists what I kind of started calling the rogues gallery of warts.
Okay.
I knew about hand warts and foot warts, obviously, but I had no idea the virus manifested in so many distinct ways, just depending on the location.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The environment of the skin completely dictates the shape and behavior of the wart. We've sort of covered the common wart already, verruca vulgaris, which is that standard dome-shaped bump on fingers and knuckles.
Right.
But then you have the ones that I think cause the most absolute misery for people, the plantar warts.
The ones on the bottom of the feet.
Soles and heels, specifically.
Now, unlike the hand warts that grow outward into a bump, these grow completely flat. Is that just because we're constantly walking on them?
It's basically a physics problem. Think about the sheer pressure you exert on your heel every single time you take a step. It's your entire body weight.
Yeah, that's a lot of force.
If a wart tries to grow outward there, that pressure immediately flattens it. So the virus adapts. It grows inward instead.
Which perfectly explains the pain.
Exactly. It's like having a sharp pebble stuck in your shoe, except the pebble is actually embedded in your own flesh. You have this hard, keratinized mass pressing down into the soft, really nerve-rich tissue of the foot every time you move.
That sounds excruciating. And the guide also mentioned something called mosaic warts in relation to the feet, which sounds weirdly artistic for something so fundamentally gross.
It's definitely not artistic. Mosaic warts happen when you have a cluster of plantar warts that merge together. Yeah, instead of a single island, you get a whole continent. It forms a large, flat plaque of warts covering a significant portion of the sole of the foot.
That sounds impossible to walk on.
And treating those is a total nightmare because the surface area is just so huge.
Okay, let's move away from the feet. Let's talk about the face, which is somehow worse. The guide describes filiform warts as looking like tentacles.
Digitate, or finger-like, is the technical term dermatologists use, but tentacles definitely paints the right picture. These are long, thin, thread-like projections, and they absolutely love the eyelids and the lips.
Why the eyelids, though? That seems like such a specific, cruel target for a virus.
It really comes down to skin thickness. The skin on your eyelids is the thinnest on your entire body. It's extremely delicate.
Yeah.
And think about how often you absent-mindedly rub your eyes during the day.
All the time.
Right. So if you have the virus on your hand and you rub that thin, vulnerable skin, it's an easy entry point.
That makes sense.
Now, because they are thin and they project outward, they are very noticeable cosmetically. But they're actually much easier to treat than plantar warts because they aren't buried deep under thick calluses.
Okay, silver lining, I guess. Then we have the flat warts. These seem like the ninjas of the wart world.
They really are the stealth operators. They are smaller, much smoother, and often yellowish or just skin-colored. You might have 20 of them on your arm and just think it's a mild rash or maybe some weird acne.
But they spread differently.
They do. The fascinating and terrifying thing about flat warts is their vector of transmission.
This is where shaving comes in, right? I remember reading this part.
Exactly. Flat warts are most common on the face for men, in the beard area, and on the legs for women. When you shave, you are literally dragging a sharp blade across your skin.
So you're slicing the top off the wart.
You're slicing the wart, which releases the active virus, and then the razor simultaneously creates microscopic nicks in the healthy skin just a millimeter away.
Oh, that is awful.
You are essentially acting like a farmer sowing seeds. You drag the virus right into fresh open wounds. That's exactly why flat warts often appear in long, straight lines. It literally traces the exact path of the razor.
That is a vivid nightmare. Note to self, if there's an unexplained bump, put the razor down immediately.
Highly recommended.
There was one more type in the guide that felt very niche. Butcher's warts.
Yes, this one is strictly an occupational hazard. It's caused by HPV type 7, which is primarily found in people who handle raw meat and fish for a living.
Is it because the virus is actually in the animal meat?
No, the virus is completely human, but the environment of a typical butcher shop, which is cold and wet, is absolutely perfect for preserving the virus on surfaces.
Oh, I see.
Plus, butchers often have macerated skin, that means soggy skin from the wet conditions, and they constantly have frequent cuts or minor nicks from their knives. It's the perfect storm for viral entry.
Oh, actually, there was one more from the source. Hex disease.
Yes, focal epithelial hyperplasia. That's a rare condition, and it's found exclusively in the mouth.
Inside the mouth.
Yes, on the mucosa. They present as soft, white, or pinkish bumps inside the lips or right on the tongue.
That sounds incredibly uncomfortable. So we know what all these different types are and where they live. The big question is, how do they actually get in to begin with? You mentioned cuts and nicks for butchers, but does the virus just float around in the air waiting for an opening?
No, it doesn't float around like the flu or a cold. It's a contact virus. But here's the key takeaway about transmission. HPV is incredibly hardy on surfaces, but it cannot penetrate intact skin. The outer layer of your skin, the stratum corneum, is a fortress.
It's solid.
Very solid. The virus absolutely needs a breach to get inside.
So a visible cut or a scrape?
Or even much less than that. Microabrasions that you can't even see with the naked eye. Or, as we just touched on with the butcher example, moisture.
Just getting wet.
When your skin gets pruny in the pool or the shower, the skin cells swell up and the physical gaps between them actually widen. The barrier naturally becomes permeable.
Which brings us to the classic locker room scenario.
The ultimate indirect transmission event. Someone with a plantar wart walks barefoot on the damp gym floor. They leave behind thousands of viral particles. You walk by 5 minutes later, also barefoot, with damp, softened skin from your shower. Your skin acts like a sponge and the virus just moves right in.
And it can really live on surfaces for that long.
It can survive on inanimate objects, which we call fomites like towels, gym floors, and shower shoes, for quite some time, provided the conditions are moist.
There's also the concept of self-inoculation, which I think is probably how a lot of people make their own problem so much worse.
Absolutely. This is the golden don't pick at it rule. If you scratch a wart on your knee, the virus gets trapped right into your fingernails.
Oh, no.
If you then bite your nails 10 minutes later, you've just delivered the virus directly to your lips. If you scratch a bug bite on your arm later that day, you've planted it there. You are your own primary vehicle for spreading it around your body.
Okay, here is the part of the biology that I really struggle to understand. If our immune system is so great, I mean, it fights off the flu, it kills dangerous bacteria, why does it just let a wart sit there on my finger for years? Why doesn't it attack?
That is the true brilliance of HPV. It's a master stealth virus. Most viruses, like the flu, kill the cells they infect.
Right.
And cell death causes inflammation. That inflammation is basically like a loud fire alarm ringing in your body, calling the police, the white blood cells, to the scene.
But HPV doesn't kill the cell, it just makes it grow faster.
So it never trips the alarm.
Exactly. No dead cells, no alarm. Plus, it stays strictly in the very upper layers of the skin, which is a low surveillance territory for the immune system because there isn't much blood flow up there natively. It essentially hides in the attic where the police never bother to look. The body simply doesn't know it's there.
That perfectly explains why the wait-and-see approach, which the source mentions as a valid option, takes so incredibly long. The stat was that 65% of warts resolve on their own, but it can take up to 2 years. Right. Eventually, usually by random chance, the immune system spots it. And once it finally does, it usually wipes it out quite effectively.
Right.
But 2 years is a very long time to walk around with a painful or unsightly growth on your body.
Or especially if it's on your face or the bottom of your foot. So let's talk warfare. If I'm not willing to wait 2 years for my immune system to figure it out, what are my actual options? I feel like salicylic acid is the gold standard we all know.
It is the traditional first line of defense. You find it in over-the-counter gels, pads, drops. It's what we call a keratolytic agent.
Keratolytic, which means what exactly?
It dissolves keratin.
Yeah.
Keratin is the tough protein that makes up the hard structure of the skin and the wart. The acid works by chemically burning away the layers of the wart, literally peeling it off sheet by sheet.
Sounds effective.
It is, but it serves a dual purpose. The physical irritation caused by the acid can sometimes trigger that local immune response we were talking about.
Oh, I get it.
It essentially pinches the skin hard enough to wake up the immune system and say, hey, look over here.
But reading the guide, it seems like a very slow process.
Very slow. It can take weeks or even months of daily, consistent application. You have to be incredibly disciplined for it to work.
So if I want it gone right now, I go to the dermatologist and get it frozen. Cryotherapy.
Cryotherapy. Liquid nitrogen. This stuff is roughly minus 196 degrees Celsius.
So we are essentially freezing the virus to death.
Actually, no. We aren't killing the virus directly with the cold at all. We are destroying the house it lives in.
Really?
Yeah. The extreme cold causes the water inside the infected skin cells to crystallize into ice and expand, which completely shatters the cells. It also creates a blister underneath the wart.
Oh, so you're trying to lift the whole structure off the healthy skin.
Exactly. The blister forms between the wart and the healthy dermis below, physically separating the infected tissue. A week or so later, the dead wart just falls off.
Having had this done when I was younger, I can absolutely attest it hurts a lot.
It definitely stings. And it often takes more than one session, especially for those deep plantar warts we talked about. The nitrogen has to penetrate through a really thick layer of callus just to reach the infected tissue.
Let's pivot to the home remedies mentioned in the source, specifically the suffocation method. Duct tape. Is this real medical science, or is this just pure folklore?
It's surprisingly controversial in the medical community. There was a very famous study years ago that showed duct tape was actually as effective as clinical cryotherapy, but then later studies had really mixed results. The ERA Organics Guide suggests it can work, especially when you combine it with salicylic acid.
But how is it working? Is it actually suffocating the virus from getting oxygen?
Probably not suffocating the way we think of breathing. The leading theory right now is actually about debridement and irritation.
Debridement.
Yeah, removal of dead tissue. When you rip that strong, sticky tape off your skin every few days, you are physically tearing away the top layers of the wart. You are also heavily irritating the skin, which, again, might finally alert the immune system. It creates a localized inflammatory reaction.
So the tape is essentially just a highly effective way to annoy your immune system into finally doing its job.
Pretty much. Plus, it completely covers the wart, which prevents you from accidentally spreading it to other people or other parts of your body.
The guide also mentions using a pumice stone or sandpaper to file the wart down between these treatments. And this makes logical sense. You want to get the dead, hard skin out of the way so the medicine or the cold can penetrate deeper. But there is a huge red flag here regarding hygiene.
A massive red flag. I cannot stress this enough for anyone listening. If you use a pumice stone on a wart, that stone is now a biohazard. It is completely covered in live viral particles.
So definitely don't use it on your other foot.
Don't use it on your other foot. Don't put it back in the shower caddy for your spouse to use on their heels. If you are filing a wart, use cheap, disposable emery boards and throw them away immediately after one use. Otherwise, you are just building a virus distribution center right in your own bathroom.
Okay, duly noted. Throw away the emery board. Now, if the acid fails, and the freezing fails, and the duct tape does nothing, what is the nuclear option?
Then you move up to the professional surgical tier. There is laser treatment, specifically pulse dye lasers, which are designed to target hemoglobin in the blood.
Oh, to hit that supply chain you mentioned earlier?
Exactly. They literally burn the blood vessels, feeding the wart, essentially starving the tumor to death from the inside. Or there's immunotherapy, where doctors inject antigens like candida yeast directly into the wart tissue.
Wait, they inject yeast into the wart? Why yeast?
Yes. Since the human body absolutely hates candida yeast, it immediately sends the entire immune army to that exact spot to fight the yeast infection. And while the army is there, they finally notice the hiding HPV and they kill that too. It's a brilliant bait-and-switch tactic.
That is incredibly clever. Wow. But here is the question that haunts literally everyone who has ever dealt with this. You go through the pain, the freezing, the expensive laser surgery, and then 3 months later, the exact same wart comes back. Why does that happen?
We call that the zombie virus effect. And this is the hardest part for patients to accept. When we treat a wart, whether we freeze it, burn it, or cut it out, we are only removing the visible tumor. But the virus lives in the skin cells surrounding the wart, often in what looks like perfectly healthy skin.
So the root system is much wider than the tree itself.
Exactly. We call it the viral margin. If your immune system doesn't step up and clear those surrounding invisible infected cells, the virus just starts rebuilding the city the second you stop treating it. That's why recurrence rates can be so frustratingly high, and why treating a wider field of skin is sometimes necessary.
So given all of that, prevention really is the absolute best cure here. How do we stop the invasion before it even starts?
It all goes right back to the entry points. Maintain the barrier, keep your skin moisturized to prevent microscopic cracking. Dry skin is brittle skin, and brittle skin breaks easily.
And footwear.
Non-negotiable.
Yeah.
If you were in a communal wet space, a college dorm shower, a gym locker room, a hotel pool, deckwear, flip-flops, never go barefoot in those places. You are walking through a microbial minefield.
And don't share personal tools.
Right. Towels, razors, nail clippers, these are highly personal items. Treat them that way. And it's also definitely worth mentioning vaccines here. The Gardasil vaccine is famous for preventing cervical cancer, but it also covers HPV types 6 and 11, which cause genital warts. It doesn't cover the common hand and foot strains we've been talking about, but it's a crucial part of the overall defense strategy against the broader HPV family.
Okay, so to summarize our deep dive today for you listening, warts are not just random annoying bumps. They are complex, blood-sucking, immune-evading viral colonies. They are incredibly common, very tricky to treat, but ultimately entirely manageable if you are persistent.
And if you stop picking at them.
Yes, and if you stop picking at them. Before we sign off today, give us one final thought to chew on regarding everything we just learned.
I want you to think about the intelligence of this simple virus. It has no brain, no nervous system. It barely counts as a living organism. Yet look at the tactical adaptations. The plantar wart uses your own body weight to bury itself for protection against friction. The flat wart exploits your daily grooming habit shaving to spread itself rapidly across your face. The common wart builds its own custom blood supply infrastructure to feed its growth. It takes a gross medical annoyance and turns it into a masterclass in biological survival. It's actually quite brilliant in a very terrifying way.
Well, I will certainly never look at a razor or a wet locker room floor the same way ever again. I'm going to go buy some new flip-flops immediately. Thank you so much for helping us unpack all of that.
My pleasure. Happy to help.
And thanks to you for listening to this deep dive. Stay safe out there, stay moisturized, and we'll see you next time.